Hello everyone, welcome back to another 3.5 Godot tutorial, and today I'm gonna show you how to create a 2D tank game. Now I have this new empty project, and I'm gonna start by setting up some few things by going to project settings, and I want to change the resolution of the screen by changing the width to 1280 and the height to 720, and down here I'm going to change the mode to 2D and aspect to keep. Then click on close. Now you need to download the assets folder that I already have in the resources folder of my project, and I'm going to leave a link in the description for it. Next, we need to create the main scene node by clicking on 2D scene, rename it to main, save it, and this is it. Now we can go to the next step and create the tank scene. Now to create the tank, we need to click on add a new scene, click on other node, and we need to select the kinematic body 2D node, rename it to tank, add sprite and a collision shape 2D node. Now for the sprite we need to rename it to body, and from the assets folder click and drag the tank body.png to the texture. Now for the collision shape 2D node you need to select new rectangle shape 2D and adjust it to the size of the tank, like this. Now we need to add another sprite for the tank turret, rename it to turret, and from the assets folder click and drag the turret.png file to the texture. And finally we need to add a position 2D node to the turret and move it in front of the tank's muzzle like this. Now save it, and first we need to scale down the tank size by selecting tank and go to transform and change the X value to 0.5 and the Y value to 0.5. Save it again and go back to the main scene and create an instance of this tank and move it to the center. Now when we click on the play button, click on select and select the main scene. So the game will run and we have an instance of the tank inside of our main scene, but we do not have any control of the tank yet. So for this we need to go back to the tank scene and attach a script for it. And in here I'm gonna create the speed variable, so export int var speed and another variable for the rotation speed of tank. So rotation and next I'm gonna create a new function called move that will have delta as a parameter, and inside of this function I'm gonna make the tank move and rotate. But first we need to make the tank turret always point to the mouse position. So in here we need to get access to the turret and call look at function, and inside of it we need to get the mouse cursor position. So get global mouse position. Now we need to call the physics process function, and inside of it we need to call the move function. Now let's test it by running the game. So as you can see, now the turret of the tank always point to the mouse cursor position. Now we want to make the tank move and rotate. So I'm gonna create a new variable called rotation direction. And I'm gonna initialize to 0. And now if input dot is action pressed UI right, we want to turn the tank to the right. So rotation direction plus equal 1. And if input dot is action pressed UI left, rotation direction minus equal 1. Now we want to set the global rotation of the tank to the rotation speed times rotation direction times delta. So let's test this, but first we need to go to the tank scene and change the rotation speed to 1. Now when we run the game and when we press the left and right arrow keys, the tank will rotate. So next we need to make the tank move forward and backward when we press the up and the down keys. But first we need to create a new variable for the velocity. So var velocity equal to a vector2, and in the move function, if input dot is action pressed UI up, we need to set the velocity value to a vector2 inside of it the speed 0 dot rotated, and need to get the rotation of the tank. And if input dot is action pressed UI down, then we need to set the velocity value to a vector2 that have the speed, or maybe the speed divided by 3, that we want to go more slower when it move backward, dot rotated to the rotation of the tank. Now we need to go to the tank scene and change the speed to 100. And in the physics process function, we need to set the velocity to a vector2. And now we need to call the move and slide function. Now, when we run the game, the tank now is moving in all directions and everything is work fine. Now we want to make the tank be able to shoot bullets when we press the left button of the mouse. But first we need to create the bullet scene by clicking on add a new scene. So the bullet is going to be a rigid body 2D node. Let's rename it to bullet, add a sprite and a collision shape 2D for it. So for the sprite, we need to go to the assets folder, click and drag the bullet.png to the texture. And we want to go to transform and scale down the Y value to 0.5. Now for the collision shape 2D, it's going to be a new rectangle shape 2D, and we need to adjust it to be the size of the bullet. Now save it. And as I told you, we want to make the tank be able to shoot bullets when we press the left mouse button. So for this we need to go to project settings and go to input map, and here we need to add this button. It's going to have the name of shoot. Click on add, and down here we have this new button. Click on this add event and select mouse button. It's going to be the left button, so add and close. Now going back to the tank script, here we need to declare some new variables like the bullet speed. So export int var bullet speed, and another variable for the fire rate. So export float var fire rate, and the variable for the bullet lifetime. Now we want to preload the bullet scene into a variable, so var bullet equal to preload. Now we need to click and drag the bullet scene to the text editor, like this. And the last variable is going to be the can shoot variable. So var can shoot is going to be a Boolean variable that initializes to true. Now let's go ahead and create a new function called create bullet instance, and then this function is going to create bullet instances inside the main scene. So we need to create a new variable called bullet instance equal to bullet dot instance. Now we need to choose position of this bullet, so bullet instance dot position equal to the turret slash position 2d dot get global position. Now we need to set the rotation degrees of this bullet, so bullet instance dot rotation degrees equal to the turret dot rotation degrees plus the rotation degrees of the tank body, so plus rotation degrees. Now we need to apply an impulse to this bullet so we can make it move in a certain direction. So bullet instance dot apply impulse. We need to apply it to the center of the bullet, so vector 2 0 0, and we want to apply the bullet speed to it. So vector 2 bullet speed 0 dot rotated the turret dot rotation plus rotation of the tank body. Now we need to add this bullet to the main scene, so get tree dot get root dot add child bullet instance, and we want to remove this bullet from the main scene after a certain amount of time, so yield get tree dot create timer that will have the bullet lifetime and timeout. And now bullet instance dot q3. Now I need to go back to the physics process function, and we want to call this function when we click the left mouse button and can shoot is true. So if equals is action pressed the shoot button and can shoot is true, then we call create bullet instance, and we want to set the can shoot to false and make it back to true after a certain amount of time. So is get tree dot create timer, and here the fire rate and timeout, then can shoot is back to true again. Now we go back to the tank scene, and now we need to change the bullet speed to 1000, the fire rate to 2 seconds, and the bullet lifetime to 0.5 seconds. Now let's test it. Oh, as you can see, when I press the left mouse button, the tank will shoot bullets. Now let me just change the mouse cursor image by going to project settings and click on mouse cursor, and in custom image you need to go to the assets folder and select this image and change the hotspot to 16 by 16. Now when we play the game again, we have this new mouse cursor image and the tank shooting bullets. Now we need to add an animation shoot effect to the tank when it shoots bullets. So let's go ahead and click on add a new scene and select animated sprite node, rename it to shoot effect, and in the inspector click on frames and select new sprite frames, click on it again, and that will open this little window down here, and let's rename it default to animate and select on this little icon, go to the assets folder and select shoot effect.png. Now we need to set this to 2 by 2. Oh, I think it is 1 by 2, sorry. So select those 2 frames and click on add 2 frames. Now I want to change the FPS to 15 and I want to add a script for this node. So here I just need to call the ready function, and inside of it I want to set the first frame to 0 and play animate. Let's save it and go back to the tank script. We need to create a constant that will preload this animation scene. So const shoot effect equal to preload, and again click and drag the shoot effect scene to the text editor. And now let's go ahead and create a new function called create shoot effect. Now in here we need to declare a new variable called shoot effect instance equal to shoot effect dot instance. And now we need to set the position of this shoot effect. So shoot effect instance dot position equal to the turret slash the position to the dot get global position. Now we need to set the rotation degrees of this animation. So shoot effect dot rotation degrees equal to the turret dot rotation degrees plus the rotation degrees of the tank body. Now we need to add this animation to the main scene. So get tree dot get root dot add child shoot effect instance. We want to queue-free this animation after it finished. So yield shoot effect instance animation finish it, then shoot effect instance dot queue-free. Now back to the physics process function. We need to create shoot effect animation when we shoot a bullet. So down here below the create bullet instance we call create shoot effect. Now let's test it. Now as you can see, when I fire bullets there is an animation in the tank muzzle. So we want to add an explosion effect animation so the bullet will explode when it reaches its maximum range. So for this we need to add a new scene and select animated sprite node, rename it to explosion effect, and click on new sprite frames, click on it again, rename it to animate, change the FPS to 15 and click on this little icon here and go to the assets folder and select explosion animation.png. Now we need to set the values to 3 by 3. Let me zoom out a little bit. And we need to select those 8 frames. This one is empty here, so no need to select it. Click on add frames and attach a script for this node. And in the ready function, we need to set the first frame to 0 and play animate. Let's save it. And going back to the tank script, we need to create a new constant that will have the explosion effect animation. So const explosion effect equal to preload, and click and drag the explosion effect scene. Now we need to create a new function called explode that will have the bullet or the explosion position as a parameter, and in this function I'm going to create a new variable called explosion effect instance equal to explosion effect dot instance. Now we want to set the position of this explosion effect, so explosion effect instance dot position equal to the explosion position from the parameter. Now we need to add this animation to the main node, so get tree dot get root dot add child explosion effect instance. Now we want to queue-free this animation when it finishes. So yield explosion effect instance, and here animation finished. Now explosion effect instance dot queue-free. So we want to add an explosion effect in the last position of the bullet. So for this, I'm going to create a new variable called var last, or bullet last position, and in the create bullet instance, I want to call the explode function just before we remove the bullet instance from the scene. So explode, and with the bullet last position variable. Now we want to get the bullet last position before we used in the explode function. So here, bullet last position equal to bullet instance dot get global position. Now let's test it. Now you can see that when the bullet reaches its maximum range, it will explode. Now we need to add sound effects for the game. It's going to be 2 sound effects, one for the shoot effect and one for the explosion effect. So now we need to add a new scene and select node, rename it to shoot sound, add an audio stream player, and from the assets folder, click and drag the sound effect audio to the inspector. Now make sure to check autoplay and save it. Now we need to add another node for the explosion sound, also add an audio stream player for it, and click and drag the explosion audio to the inspector. Make sure to check autoplay and save it. Now back to the tank script. Now we need to create another constant that will have the shoot sound effect equal to preload. Click and drag the shoot sound scene, and another constant for the explosion sound effect. Now in the create bullet instance function, we need to create another variable called shoot sound effect instance equal to the shoot sound effect dot instance, and now get tree dot get root dot add child sound shoot sound effect instance. Now in the explode function, also need to create an instance of the explosion sound effect. So var explosion sound effect instance equal to explosion sound effect dot instance, and we need to add this sound effect to the main scene. So get tree dot get root dot add child explosion sound effect instance. Now let me run the game and test this. Now you can see that we have sound effects in our game. Now you can see that the tank can get out of the screen. So to fix this, we need to add the camera 2D to this tank. But before that, I want to add background for the game. So go into the main scene, select it, and add sprite node. Move it up and rename it background. Now from the assets folder, click and drag the terrain.png image to the texture. And now you can see that we have this background in our game. Now to add a camera for the tank, you need to select the tank, right click on it and go to editable children, and here we need to add camera 2D. Now in the inspector of the camera 2D, make sure to check current, and now the camera will always follow the tank. Let's play the game again. And now as you can see, the camera is always following the tank. But the tank can get out of the map, and we need to fix this problem. So we need to set a limit for the camera. You can see that we have this limit property in the inspector. And to set up the right limits of the camera, we can use the help of those grid lines. So we can go to up here and click and drag. And we can see that the top limit is minus 720 pixels. And the left limit is minus 1280. So here in the inspector, we need to go to left and set it to minus 1280, and to the top minus 720, and for the right and the bottom it's going to be just the opposite value. So for the right it's going to be 1280, and for the bottom 720. Now let me run the game again. And as you can see, the camera is not moving anywhere further, but the player is getting out of the map. So for this, we need to go to the script of the tank and limit the movement of this tank. So in the physics process function, we need to clamp the Y and the X position of the tank. So position dot X equal to clamp position dot X, and we want to limit it from minus 1280 to 1280. And for the Y position, we want to limit it by minus 720 by 720. Now let me play the game again. Now you can see that the tank can no longer get out of the map and everything works fine. And like this, we have finished this game. Thank you very much for watching, and see you all later.